access this on demand afterwards. So we're excited to be able to provide that as well. So thank you everyone for joining us. You might have heard me say earlier when I was talking to Nefertiti, this is our 4th webinar of the day. So bear with me as I use some notes. I'm not quite as sharp as I normally would be in webinar mode. We know this has been a really stressful time for everyone across the country and across the world. And what we know for sure is that it has been an extremely large burden on our early childhood community. Whether you're in a preschool setting, a childcare setting, you're in Head Start, early Head Start, home visiting, early intervention, you're a healthcare provider. We know that the people who really wrap their arms around and take care of our youngest children and their families have had to bear the brunt of a lot of the stressors that have been happening, especially here in our state. So I just want to start by saying we appreciate you. We see all the hard work you're doing and all the ways that you are continuing to support kids and families outside the normal scope of your work, as the early childhood community always does. And while that work is so often undervalued and underappreciated, know that we see you and we recognize that. And while that may not mean a lot, we hope it means something. I want to thank our partner organizations who are helping us put on this webinar, Ohio AEYC and Southwest Ohio AEYC, and I represent Groundwork Ohio. So we're so excited that we can offer this to you today. We've been working really closely with lots of partners across the state, including, as I said, Ohio AEYC and Southwest Ohio AEYC, but also with Dayton Preschool Promise and Learn to Earn Dayton, Ohio, the Ohio Association of Child Care Providers, with OKRA, with, I'm sure there's others that I'm forgetting, but lots of great statewide organizations and local organizations that are working really hard behind the scenes that you don't usually get to see, that are not only looking to share resources with you on our websites and through email communications, but to provide opportunities for you to hear directly from the state as they share information and changes in rules and regulations. And most importantly, and the least likely seen, is trying to advocate for you and to be your voice as these big decisions are being made that are outside the control of all of you and in many ways a lot of us. So know that if you've been on other webinars, or if you've sent an email to anyone or posted on our Facebook page or on our website, while you may not hear a direct response from us, we are taking all of that and sharing that with the state and trying to get the best results for families, for children, and for you during this really challenging time. But tonight, we want to take a step back and provide a different type of support besides information and advocacy, and that is to really support you as individuals and you as a field who are serving our families and our most at-risk children. So tonight is a moment to take a step back from policies and advocacy and rules and regulations, and to just take a moment to think about each of ourselves and how we can support ourselves and one another. Everyone's experiencing different things at work and in their family than we're used to experiencing, and we all respond to those things differently. But what we can all benefit from is the chance to take time for ourselves. And as we all say often in this field, we need to fill our own buckets before we can fill anyone else's. So that's what we're here for tonight. We've invited Dr. Nefertiti Bruce Poyner, who a lot of you know and may have seen speaking at other events, or I think most recently in the state at the Ohio AEYC conference a couple of years ago. Dr. Poyner is an author, speaker, and provider of professional development for the Devereaux Center on Resilient Children. She's written a book that was created to help caregivers build their own resilience, and has developed a lot of research-based training programs and resources to help support the social emotional health of both children and caregivers. So I'm really excited right now to turn things over to you. I know you can go ahead and share your screen with whatever resources you have, but as we're listening to Dr. Poyner, feel free to post any questions you may have in the chat box, and as time permits at the end, we'll do some Q&A if we're able to. and then we'll share some additional resources at the end.
Okay. Thank you, Julia. I'm trying to share my screen. It says I cannot share my screen while someone else is sharing.
All right, well, I will stop sharing my screen then.
Okay. Let's see if that changes things.
How's that?
Let's see. That should do it. Let's do share screen. Yep. Share. All right. What you see? See a PowerPoint?
Let's see. Yep, we're seeing all the slides right now. So I think if you just hit.
Okay. You never want to see all the slides because it might scare you how many slides a person is.
Well, there you go. You're all set.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I don't take it lightly. Julia and her team could have chosen anyone to join you this afternoon, and I am so humbled and honored to just share these few minutes with you. Julia and I have been in contact since last week, just trying to make sure that we craft a message that will give you something to think about during this pretty interesting time. I want to stop using the word difficult. I'm just going to call it interesting, and every day gets more and more interesting. I also know that many of us are calling in from our home environments. I don't want to be like you. Did you see that news reporter who was doing that segment and his children were in the background? Remember that? Well, my children are here with me today. And so I want to, I told them, I threatened their lives. I told them not to open the door, not to knock on the door. But, you know, if you see a little one come behind my head, just know that we're all in this together. And that's just the nature of where we are now, right? But again, for just a few minutes, we're not going to be here for a real long time, but I want to give you some strategies and something to think about under the title, Building Your Bounce, Simple Strategies for a Resilient You. Some of you have joined me in live sessions. This term is familiar to you. Some of you have listened in on some of our webinars hosted by the Devereaux Center for Resilient Children. But tonight, I want you to think about everything that we're talking about in the context of what we're going through right now. Because many of you who know the work of the Devereaux Center for Resilient Children, you have been prepared for a time just like this. But tonight, I just want us to sit with it for just a little bit. Try to make really good meaning of it for yourself, and let's see how we can use it to support us through this very different time in our life. So again, thank you so much. How hard was it to get away? I want to chat with you sometime tonight, so stay close by so we can chat together. And don't worry about typos, because I don't care if you have a typo in the chat box. I just want you to talk to me. So when we start talking together, make sure you come and hang out with me. I'm talking to you tonight as a teacher. I'm a preschool and kindergarten teacher in Philadelphia. I'm talking to you tonight as a trainer. For the last almost 20 years, I've been a trainer for the Devereaux Center for Resilient Children, talking about ways to promote the social and emotional health of babies, toddlers, preschoolers, and adults. So that's what we've been doing. I also talk to you tonight as a wife, as a sister, and as the mom of a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old. And I'm learning what life feels like for them when you're dealing with a situation such as the one we're dealing with tonight. So I am again thanking you for figuring out a way, whether you're listening live or to our recording. Thank you for joining us. I want to go ahead and get started, and I want you to think about a few things with me, and let's just start here. How you are is as important as what you do. How you are is as important. I told you she was going to come up here, didn't I? How you are is as important as what you do. Want to just pause for a second and read those words. How you are is as important as what you do. If we were together, I would want you to underline the word how. Because no matter what happens, it takes a healthy village to raise a healthy child. And right now, you and I have to make sure how we are is as important as what we're doing, whether that is what we're doing in our homes or back in our offices. How you are is as important as what you do. And so when I say how, what I'm asking you to think about with me today is to bring your resilience with you as you and I navigate this life that we're living right now. And you may say, Nefertiti, well, what do you mean when you say my resilience? Well, first of all, you're going to hear the word now more than ever, right? We're resilient individuals, we're resilient families, we're resilient communities. But I want to kind of give you some highlights from the research on how and why this matters. So just for a second, write down the word resilience. Just write down the word resilience. If you've got your cell phone with you, put it in your notes. Just write down the word resilience. Okay. If you have questions for me as I'm talking, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. I'm going to quiet myself in just a moment to kind of talk with you and see if you have any questions. But let's try to make sense of this piece right here. When you think about the term resilience, the research says that there is a such thing as a resilience model. If you and I are going to be resilient, we have to make sure our risk factors do not outweigh our protective factors. Does that make sense? Look at the scale with me. On the left-hand side of my screen, it is sharing with me that risk factors fall into 3 categories. There is a such thing as an environmental risk factor. There are risk factors in your family, and there are risk factors within us. When you have too many risk factors, your scale tips to the side that reads negative and vulnerable. Makes sense, right? But here is the good news about this term resilience. Team members, until I can see you again, every time it feels as if life is weighing on your risk factor side, I want you to think protective factors. And guess what? The same categories of risk that could be present in your life, you can turn those into protective factors, because our protective factors also fall into 3 categories: environment, family, and within child. Tonight, I call Ohio Groundworks as an organization an environmental protective factor, because amongst everything that's going on, they are working hard to organize resources for the state of Ohio. And I appreciate that. I want you to leave me in just a few minutes remembering that the risk factors are present. We know what they are, but don't you let a person, a family, or a situation in on just that note. Make sure they're talking about one of my favorite words, and that's protective factors. All right, look at this example with me and see if this makes sense. When I'm training in live presentations, I always say to team members, the risk factors is the rain that falls on us. Team members, we got a lot of rain right now. We have a lot of rain. But the hopeful good news message is that if and when it's raining, you got to find your umbrellas. And your umbrellas are your protective factors. And let's be really transparent with each other tonight. The protective factors are not going to get you immediately employed again. Your protective factors aren't going to necessarily change the immediate circumstance that you're dealing with. Protective factors are not going to immediately solve the coronavirus pandemic. But what it will do is provide a buffer for each of us in this yucky place that we're finding ourselves in right now. I want you to leave me tonight remembering your protective factors. All right? Where you wrote down the word resilience, please write down the word protective factors. All right. I'm asking you to write these things down now tonight, because when you go back to when you resume your life with your family and your friends and they say, what were you doing up there? You can tell them some of the keywords that we're talking about. Okay. Now, to help everyone, because again, I hope you will share this with another adult that is important to you, because their resilience matters. But a lot of this can be talked about with our children too, because they have risks and they also need protective factors. And one of the greatest protective factors they have and need right now is a healthy adult. And that's why I'm so glad we can spend a few minutes tonight just talking about what we can do. All right. So resilience, lots of people say it's the ability to bounce back. It's the ability to overcome the odds. Read this definition that Stephen Covey puts forth. Just read this definition. See those words? I like what he says when he says rescripting. I think many of us are rescripting right now, right? You had no idea that this is what 2020 was going to bring for any of us. And we are rescripting daily, hourly, moment by moment. But that's your resilience. That's your resilience showing up. And so Julia's going to pop a resource, a link in the chat box, because as soon as this webinar is over, I want you to think with me about this tool. So it's called the DARS, the Devereaux Adult Resilience Survey. When we're back to real life and you're dating, I want you to take this on your next date too, because I think there's some good stuff on here. I want you to kind of bring it up over conversation for during your next date, and then invite me to the wedding, because if you built your relationship on protective factors, that has the making to be a good relationship. So the DARS has 23 items that are going to help you and I think about behaviors we can use right now. Right now. And to that person that says, Nefertiti, you have no idea everything that's going on in my life right now, I will say to you, you're right. I don't know. But I'm going to say to you that you have a choice. You can stay there, or we can think together about how I can go about rescripting and taking control where I can. Taking control where you can. A lot of this starts when you and I can think about our resilience. So the tool is called the DARS. It's free for download. I think every adult that's in your life right now should take a look at this, because if we've never needed an umbrella before, we need one now. All right. So let's talk about what's on the DARS. So one of the protective factor areas that you and I need is relationships. So I'm an introvert by nature. One of the things that's stressing me out a little bit right now is everybody is in my house. And I don't have a way to pull in my head. The 5-year-old's at the door. The 15-year-old needs help with the homework. The husband gets like, can you just leave me alone for a little bit? But that's just me being honest and transparent. But relationships as a protective factor. Relationships as a protective factor. The mutual, long-lasting relationship you have with other people in your life. Okay? I want you to think with me about this being an umbrella for you right now and over the next few days, months, weeks, and even beyond. So look at the behaviors that make up the DARS. I have a good friend who supports me. I have a mentor or someone who shows me the way. I provide support to others. I am empathetic to others. I trust my close friends. These were some of the behaviors we saw in the research that contribute to the protective factor of relationships. So when you get a DARS, you're going to do this. You're going to read each statement. You're going to say, yes, I do that. Sometimes I do that, or not yet. Okay? But tonight, I wanted us to practice with this one. I have good friends who support me. Team members, I think we are all on the same page about this right now. The media and the highest levels of government and medical are encouraging us all to practice social distance. The more I think about it and the more I listen, it's really physical distance that's what is really necessary. So tonight, can I encourage you, as I'm encouraging myself? I'm going to practice social distance. I'm going to practice physical distance. But you know what I'm not going to practice? Losing my social connections. Does that make sense? I'm going to stay as far away from people if I have to go out as I need to. I'm going to practice physical distance so we can flatten this curve. But I am not going to compromise my social connections. And so how do we do this? How can we do this together? Well, one of my strategies until I can talk to you again is I want you to schedule a date with your protective factor. Okay, I want you to schedule a date with your protective factor. So, for example, my mom teaches an adjunct class at a university in Philadelphia, and she is trying. My mom doesn't like the computer. Like this part, staying at home, she's fine with, but trying to do everything electronically, she's not too happy about it. And one of her classes is requiring that she use Zoom. She's like, Nefertiti, what is Zoom? How do I Zoom? Mom, breathe. And so yesterday, over the weekend, she practiced getting herself into a Zoom classroom. She sent me a link to sign up. And guess what, team? She did a great job. When I clicked on the link, I was in the room with her. Everything was great. And she was super proud of herself. And so now I said, Mom, to keep practicing, why don't you invite your grandchildren to a story reading with you in the Zoom classroom? And she said, I'm going to do it. And so, team, I know that it's not the end all be all, but I would like to ask you to remember that right now, really, particularly right now, our friends and family, they can be our protective factor. And I just want you to look at them like that right now. And maybe, even maybe, when this is over, we won't stop there. Because can I be honest with you for a minute? I was shopping at Sam's Club a few weeks ago, and it warmed my heart to see the number of mommies and daddies with their children and extended family all shopping together. And I said to myself, I hope when this is over that we don't stop there. Mommies and daddies and grandma and grandpops have been forced to sit with children to help with homework. I hope that when this is over, that doesn't stop. We have more energy for bedtime reading and bedtime snuggles and good morning kisses. I hope when this is over, we don't stop there. So I want to ask that you schedule a date with your protective factor and see if that helps you feel better as we continue to deal every day with this interesting, difficult situation. Okay? So, first strategy for tonight, schedule a date with your protective factor. If you got to get on a Zoom call, a FaceTime call, set a date to schedule some time with your protective factor. And then call them that word. Say, protective factor, I want you to meet me for coffee in the Zoom room. And they'll say, well, what's a protective factor? It's a good time to educate them and tell them about our webinar, okay? Life is made up of special moments which make life worth living. There are special cherished moments that are missed due to the stress of our fast-paced living. When we slow down, we can remember how precious it is just to be alive and to love. I have used this quote in my previous webinars and some of my live presentations, but it has a different meaning to me right now. Been forced to slow down a little bit, and I'm trying to make sure I do the things echoed in this comment. So what about you? After we introduce the protective factors, this is the question I'm always going to ask you. Those 5 items, those are your tools. As you navigate this difficult this difficult moment in our lives, these are your tools. Your protective factors are your tools. So my question is, do you need to do anything differently? Do you need to do anything differently? Okay. I'll just pause for 60 seconds to see if there are any questions about the protective factor of relationships. I won't address them right now because I will address your questions at the end, but let's just pause for 30 seconds and see if you have any questions or comments about that first introduction to protective factors. Okay. If you're ready, let's talk about the next protective factor. So this next protective factor is called internal beliefs. It's how we feel about ourselves and how good we feel we are at just living our lives. Like, that's what internal beliefs. I like to say it's how you feel about the person that looks back at you in the mirror. That's your sense of internal beliefs. And guess what, team? Internal beliefs can be one of your protective factors. So if you have a chance to take a peek at the doors, here are some of the behaviors that you'll see. My role as a caregiver is important. When I listened to the way Ohio was handling some of what's going on now, and I have many teacher friends. My 5-year-old calls you my teacher friends. Those of you that have been in training, we think about our role as caregivers being important, where everybody was getting sent home and every center was being closed. And it's just like, what about us? What about us? I wanted to just shout to every one of us that teaches, don't you let this underestimate who you are as a person. You and I have to recognize that we are working with America's youngest citizens. And if we continue to do a good job, maybe we'll have the kind of community that we all wish to have. Don't you underestimate your role right now. Internal beliefs, you have to know that your role is important. My personal strengths, that would number 2, that's what number 2 says. You know you have personal strengths. Number 3 says you are creative. And again, team, when you think about it as a protective factor, the resilience literature doesn't say like you know how to draw. That's not what we mean when we say creative. But there's a person listening to this webinar tonight. You have figured out a way to make sure your family is eating, to make sure your family is connected. You figured out some financial, like you figured it out. That's your creativity. That's your tool. You have strong beliefs. That's what number 5 says. You're hopeful about the future. That's number 5, excuse me. And then number 6 says, I'm lovable. So imagine this. It's 2-3 months ago. You were doing great. Your internal beliefs were feeling good. And then this happened. You go to work, you're told you don't have a job, you're told to get unemployment. Then they say, like it just turned your world upside down. But here's what I'm so glad you can hang out with me for a little bit tonight, because you have a choice. You can lean on your protective factor of internal beliefs, and you can do this. What's she doing? She's changing her perspective. That's what she's doing. She is remembering that I can't let things that are out of my control get on my nerves. I can't stress over things that are out of my control. It only leads to more gray hair and more wrinkles and weight gain, and I don't need help with none of that. So what's she doing? She's changing her perspective. And that's what I want you and I to do tonight as we think about the protective factor of internal beliefs. So I do want you to join me in the chat box. Not today, COVID-19. Not today. Where in your life do you need to reframe something? What did you hear your self-talk say today that needs a bit of reframing? I am going to stop saying, because I've been saying this since the children have been home, I'm tired. I'm tired. That's what I keep finding myself saying. And I want to stop saying that. If I need to get a good night's rest, or I say I'm sleepy because that's really how I feel, but I want to say stop saying I'm tired. I'm going to say I have the energy to do what I need to do. That's my reframe as I work on my internal beliefs. So come to the chat box and tell me, just give us an idea. What do you need to reframe? What do you need to change your self-talk about? And what are you going to say differently to yourself? So I'm just going to peek in the chat box for a little bit and see what your comments are saying. Sometimes it goes so fast that I can't always see it, but I'm going to see what we can do. So come to the chat box and tell me what you're thinking. I love it. I got it. I got it. Turn off the phone. So yes, Margie, we're going to stop saying that. This working from home is killing me. We're going to stop saying that. Yes. It's okay. Oh, Juanita, I love the way you said that. I want to stop saying, what can I do about this? And that's such a resiliency, protective factor base. You don't get stuck in the problem without also thinking about the solution. That's awesome. Woo, I love that, Selena. Tough times don't last. Tough people do. I love it. Yeah. What can I do? Yeah. Good. Okay. Yes. So we're not supposed to say, I can't in my house either. We told the children not to say that. And I know a few times this week I've used that word, and the 5-year-old looked at me and said, Mom, that's a bad language. I wanted to say something different, but I said, thank you, honey, for reminding me that you're right. Okay. All right. Oh, thank you, team. Thank you, Carla. Darkest before the dawn. Thank you, team. I wish I could just stay there and keep reading your comments. And so for the person on the call or the webinar that might be saying, Nefertiti, really? With all we got going on, you want us to go around and reframe our thoughts? I'm going to say to you, absolutely, it's a place to start. The resilience literature makes it very clear that a lot of what you and I need to do to support us through this event and even post this event, it's called ordinary magic. Not easy magic, not super duper easy, but it's the ordinary things that you and I can do, like changing our self-talk. that will give us more reasons to smile as we navigate this moment in our lives. So I want you to think about that with me. And here's the other thing about this internal beliefs. An optimistic person is really, you ever met an optimistic person who really tries to see things where there's a solution? The pessimistic person, they always, I did a technical assistant visit once, and I said to the receptionist, have a wonderful day. And she said to me, I heard it's going to rain all weekend long. Now, my mom told me to stop talking to everybody because everybody doesn't want to be resilient, Nefertiti. That's what she told me. And so when that woman said to me it was going to rain and she thought that was going to mess up her weekend, I thought about what my mama said about leaving people alone, and I did listen to my mom. I said to this lady, and if we wake up to see that rain, won't it be amazing? Then my mom was in the back of my head like, Nefertiti, leave people alone. And then I was going to my car, and the lady said, ma'am, and said, see, your mother told you to leave people alone. I said, yes. She said, thank you. She just said thank you. And I was super happy that I didn't have to say, Mom, you were right. But will you be just an example of optimism? And team members, that doesn't mean that negates the fact that you have a full understanding of what's going on in the world. You can do both of those things. You can have a full understanding and be optimistic again about the things that are in your control. And when somebody says, Nefertiti, how do I do it? It's a choice. After tonight's webinar, if you weren't already there, you have to make a choice that I'm going to be optimistic. And so I don't want to hold you a long time, but I would like you to think about gratitude. I would like you to think about gratitude. I listened to a webinar this week by Natalie Kogan, who wrote the book Happier Now, and she encouraged her users to think about this gratitude. But what she said is, don't just say like, I'm happy that I woke up this morning. She said, keep unfolding those layers to get down to that most finite piece of gratitude. So yes, I'm happy that I woke up this morning with the children in my house happy and healthy, with my lights on and there being food in the refrigerator. Like she said, take it all the way down to that most basic level of your gratitude. So I'm not going to ask that you post this in the chat box, but I do want to use our protected time, just 60 seconds, mentally or physically, write down something that you're grateful for today, but take it all the way down. You're happy that you woke up, but there's some more to that. So let's pause for 60 seconds and just a moment of gratitude. I hope to use our protected time to do it. And I use the word protected time because as soon as we get off the webinar, whether you're listening live or to the recording, life's going to get right back to where you were. So I want you to use this protected time. To build your internal beliefs, I want to encourage you to practice moments of gratitude. Our kiddos are home with us. Let's get them doing this together. We do this as part of what we do at our dinner table. My 5-year-old is still grateful for Barbies, and my 15-year-old, on a good day, she's got some good answers. But then on some days, she'll say she's thankful for Wi-Fi. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. So, what are you going to do differently? What are you going to do differently? These are your tools. Recognizing that what you do is important. Here's the deal. I think when we come out of this, the teaching profession, in our profession as well, the nursing profession, this big human service profession is going to be looked at a bit differently because of this situation. I'm confident of it. And I hope that some good comes from it, right? Because what happened to the people that said, I don't know why you're tired, all you do is play with kids all day. Yeah, how does it feel to have your kid home all day long? Yes. And those of us that have a Kevin, you know the Kevins that are never absent and the last ones to go home. Yeah. I think there's some good going to come out of this, but you and I have to use these as our tools. And so I ask you, if you look at those 6 behaviors, what are your strengths? What do you give yourself a convincing yes for? And where might you need to work? What will you do differently? Okay. All right. Julia has some things that she wants to share with us at the end. So I want to go ahead and just do the next 2 and then get you out of here. What about initiative? The ability to make choices and decisions and act upon them. Children have lots of initiative. Children have a lot of initiative. I'm just watching my 5-year-old with this, just the way she's thinking now. It's really nice to see. But when we get to be adults, sometimes we forget. We'll say things like, oh, I'm going to do it when the kids graduate college. Well, now your grandkids in college and you still haven't done it. I'm going to do it. We just don't always say we're going to do it. And so again, you want to build this protective factor right now? If you're home and you have the capabilities, is there anything that you've been wanting to do? And tonight, because you've been listening to this webinar, I'm going to work on this protective factor. I'm going to build my initiative. All right. So that's what this one is. I communicate effectively. Ooh, that's a whole nother webinar. Maybe we could have that one later. I try many ways to solve a problem. I have a hobby that I engage in. I seek out new knowledge. Sorry. I'm open to new ideas. I hope you and your family are doing number 6. Laughter. Laughter. There's so much good stuff that can happen while we're laughing. And when people say, how can you laugh when the world feels like it's coming to an end? Tell them that you need the energy to deal with life's craziness right now. And laughter can be a form of energy. And gosh knows we need a lot of energy right now. So I hope that you're laughing. Number 7 says I can say no. And then number 8 says I can ask for help. All right. So again, I want you to think about these with me. And so tonight I wanted us to look at being open to new ideas. All right. So who is like me and you're doing, we're teaching from home. So I have found humor in some Facebook feeds and social media feeds where parents are talking about teaching their own children and like apologizing for all of the yucky things they said to us as teachers, those of us that are teachers, about their child. But here's what I want to encourage you to do. Get creative with it. Figure out a way to add something to it, because the protective factor around this is you're learning something new. You're learning something new. So my daughter was in a Montessori childcare center. And so I'm trying my best to reenact the center for her, but it's a bit difficult. And she's also the type of learner right now where she needs you to make it fun for her. You know, she's 5. So if I bring out a workbook, she's like, I don't want to do that. So my husband and I decided tonight that what we're going to do is when we do our lessons with her, we're going to videotape them. She's been watching these various children on TV and YouTube, and like they're following their parents go to Target and like play in the backyard. We're going to make one of those channels. Yep. It's called Moments with Madison. It's not developed yet, but keep your eye out for it, because every activity that we do with her, we're going to have her videotape it. So, you know, I may not be smarter than a 5th grader because I can't answer those questions that were on that show, but 5-year-olds, I got them. And I know I can make this interesting for her by doing it with the video. So we're going to do that. I seek out new knowledge. What about you? Which one of those do you need to work on? Number 1 to 8. For somebody on the call who's maybe suffering in silence right now, you're scared to ask for help. The protective factor is it's okay to ask for help. Sweetie, go on the other side. Go on the other side. Thank you. I told you she was going to come. I knew it. I knew it. Go downstairs, please. Go downstairs. Thank you. I told you I was going to be one of those broadcasters. I knew it. But asking for help. Number 8. I don't want you to suffer in silence. Whoever's listening out there and you know you need a little help, it's strong to be able to say, I need help. There's no weakness there. Your asking for help is your protective factor. So let's use it. And those of us that are trying this homeschooling thing, oh my gosh, 15-year-old science, and math, I have no idea what I'm doing. Thank gosh for YouTube videos. I really would be lost. So let's do some of this together. So learn something new. While we're dealing with this situation, do the best to learn something new. And again, team members, someone could be on the webinar saying, Nefertiti, there's so much stuff going on in the world, and here you are talking about watching a YouTube video. It's a choice. I stay present with the news so I can know what's going on, but I need to be present for myself, my husband, and my girls. And I need to make sure I keep my energy up. So I watch just enough news to stay present, and then I do what I need to do to be present for me and for them. It's a choice. You tonight have to decide, I am going to put myself first so I can be what everybody else needs, but first for what I need for me. And I know that's not easy. And it's not going to happen just in a 1 hour webinar, but you can do it. You can do it. All right. Passion is what led us here. I often say that I don't have an occupation anymore, but I have an occupation. Does everyone on the call agree with me that you have an occupation? It's your occupation that's going to sustain you through this bump. It's your occupation that's going to sustain you. So let's keep doing this together. Passion is what led us here. All right. Well, you know my question. You know my question. These are your tools. What do you need to do differently? What do you need to do differently? Okay. All right. Last protective factor, self-control. Last protective factor, self-control. Self-control is the ability to be happy, sad, confused, overwhelmed, mad, all at the same time. And gosh knows right now, I think on any given day you say, Nefertiti, how you feel? I've got so many different feelings in my spirit. I don't even know what word to use. But I feel strength in knowing that it's okay to feel any way I feel. I just need to find healthy ways to demonstrate those behaviors, right? All right. So look at the behaviors that make up self-control. I can set limits for myself. I'm flexible. I express my emotions. And what about number 4? I can calm myself down. I don't know about you, but I need number 4 every day here lately. I'm whispering like I'm just whispering it to us. I need to learn how to calm myself down in a healthy way. In a healthy way. And so I want to bring closure to our webinar tonight, helping us think about this. Maya Angelou once said, you can tell a lot about a person about the way they handle these 3 things: a rainy day, lost luggage, and tangled Christmas lights. A rainy day, a lost luggage, and tangled Christmas lights. Here's what I'm thinking. You're going to learn something about yourself through this situation that you didn't even know about yourself. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be better. Your family's going to be more well-connected. You're going to figure out a way to financially rebound. You're going to be better because you're going to intentionally work toward that effort. You are not going to let this moment knock you down. And if it does get you down, you are going to bounce back and you're going to be better than you were before it because you're going to work toward that goal. Rainy days ain't got nothing on you right now. Tangled Christmas lights, nada. And lost luggage, you'll figure it out. You will figure it out. And we're going to do this together. And so I wanted us to do some activities just around mindfulness, just to kind of help us get ready for the rest of your evening. And so I wanted to do number 4 from the checklist, practicing calming ourselves down. And so let me go back because I think my slide advanced a few too many. Hold on for me. And thank you for chatting with me. I see your questions in the chat box. I'm going to try to get to them just as soon as I can. Okay, so let's do that. Let's practice some mindfulness. And this is a nice activity to also do with your children. No matter what their age, they can do this with you as well. So I'd like to start with a focus on our breathing. So you take a nice, slow, deep breath in. If you're able, hold it for 3 to 5 seconds and then slowly but kind of forcefully push it out. And then let it, and then repeat it. And then repeat it, okay? So let's do it together. Nice deep breath in, hold it for 3 to 5 seconds, then push it out, okay? I'm going to do it with you. Let's do it one more time. Okay. There's a lot of research around the importance of mindfulness and what I like to call mindfulness strategies. They're my pocket strategies. My children could be getting on my very last nerve, but they don't have to know it because I squeeze my toes. Yes, squeezing your toes. Like right now, I'm squeezing my toes, and doesn't it look like I'm just so excited and happy? I really am. But when you squeeze your toes when someone's getting on your nerves, like you better not be squeezing your toes at me right now because I can see you. It's like, no, I can't. But when you squeeze your toes when something's getting, like when you go to the grocery store now and people are like not standing, they're in your personal space, like squeeze your toes and move away. But you can also do these strategies without anyone knowing what you're doing. I call them my pocket strategies. So deep breaths. Then I want you to think about this strategy with me. It's called think in categories. So you just get quiet as you can. If you want to close your eyes, you can do that. But think in categories just to close your eyes and mentally think about two separate categories. So for example, you could do types of fruits and types of vegetables. So again, let's say you're sitting at the dining room table, your little one is having a problem getting through this math. You don't really know what you're doing, but you know you have to have the energy to continue to support him or her. So you just quietly sit there, squeeze your toes if you need to, do your deep breathing, and then just think in categories. Cucumbers, apples, cantaloupe, tomatoes. And you just go back and forth, but silently in your brain. What you're doing is you're just you're emptying your slate. Because when you're doing this, you really can't focus on anything else. So it's just a moment. It's called think in categories. And you can make up your own categories. You can have your little ones do this before they're starting their homework, because maybe working from home kind of has them all over the place. This is just a nice centering activity. So I always like to couple my mindfulness experiences with deep breathing, and then you could go with your thinking categories. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's end with one more deep breathing. What do you think about the quote that's on the screen now? While I think this webinar is actually applicable for anyone tonight, because we work in the field of education and some of us are working with other families and with children, and some of us are village members, meaning you have a child that's important to you, team members, our children can also navigate this bump, but we have to make sure we're well. Madison turned 5 on March the 9th, and nothing hurt me more as a part of this situation is when we got the call from the YMCA that her birthday party was canceled. She had been talking about this birthday party for months. And just the day before, I had gone to the YMCA. I asked the team there about setup. They said they had everything was going to be fine, and they were ready to host the party. All invitations were out. All parents RSVP'd. Small miracle, right? And we were ready to help her celebrate turning 5. And then we were in the store picking up her cake. And we got a call that said that the YMCAs in our town were closing. So how do you tell a 5-year-old about coronavirus? How do you tell a 5-year-old about a pandemic? What do you say to a 5-year-old? And so I teared a little bit, not because of the party, but because I didn't want her to be disappointed. And so we put the groceries away, we put the cake away, and I said, Madison, a new rule has been set that is designed to keep us safe. And I explained a little bit more to her, but I framed the entire conversation around safety. And right now, if you ask Madison why she isn't in school, she will say, because my school's not safe right now. Team members, it was the best thing that I knew to do, was to just tell her that we had to cancel her party because it wasn't safe. And do you know what that 5-year-old said to me? Well, we'll just have a party at the house. Do you have my helmet? I'm ready to ride my bike. I said, huh? She said, well, we'll just have a small party at my house. And can I ride my bike? And then I cried again because she bounced back from that in an amazing way. And I hope that you and I can teach our children through this situation. You can't change the situation. You can control the way you think about it. And that's really what I just want to leave you with tonight. The protective factor of self-control, remembering to lean on your protective factors. Think about them as your tools and ask yourself, is there anything that I can do differently? Is there anything that you need to do differently? All right. Well, I hope all of that made sense. Every one of these protective factors is something you can use right now. So I want you to download the tools, share with the adults in your life that are super important to you, and just start talking about this word protective factors. Do you promise? If you say I promise in the chat box, say I promise. Well, say I will. You don't have to say I promise. Say I pinky promise. You'll talk to someone else about protective factors. Say pinky promise. All right, you saying pinky promise? Okay, all right, good. Well, Julia, you come on, get ready to come back on. I'm gonna see what questions our team may have. Let me see what you're saying. I saw the chat box moving, but I couldn't see every pinky promise. Thank you, Amy. Good. Oh, Erica, I did not like the name Nefertiti. I wanted to be named Kim. I thank you for that. All right, great. Okay. Julia, did I miss anything? Did you see a question that came up maybe while I was facilitating that we need to address together?
I think you covered mostly all of it. The one thing that I did see that was a specific question, and if folks have more, feel free to submit them now, was the author of Happier Now, which I believe was Natalie Kogan. Is that correct?
Yep, I will type it right here in the chat box. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And we have maybe time for 2 or 3 questions. If anyone has questions they want to post in the chat box, feel free to do that now. We're getting a lot of excitement and thank yous, which is great.
Awesome.
Some questions about the resiliency factors. Maybe Julia Jacobs, if you could again post the link for folks to download, that will have all of the categories and the resiliency factors that you talked about.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you to that person. That makes me know that you want to use, again, team, I don't think, and I think the reason why I call this work my occupation is because I really think I'm a better, stronger person because I know how to use my tools. And I want you and I to use our tools, and I want you to help build the tools of others because we can get through this. We will get through this together, but it's going to take a little bit. So use your tools, and your protective factors are one of your tools. So I hope that you will use those. Thank you.
And maybe just one other question, if it's all right, that I just saw come through before we share a couple more resources. Someone had the question, what if you don't have a mentor and you don't know how to find one? What is your advice for finding a mentor? Where's a good place to start?
Yep, I think that's a great question. And whenever I think about a mentor, the first thing I have to say is you got to get out there, because I think the best mentor is someone who is doing something that you like, or saying something that you like, or talking about something that matters to you. And you know the simple way to find a mentor, once you find that person, ask them to be your mentor. I have a very good friend. She's now my friend and colleague. I've admired the way that she's one of the national trainers for Devereaux. And one of the things I love about her is I know she's an introvert. So I would say to her, like, Mary, how do you keep your energy up? And how do you do this so well? And she would give me some suggestions. So one day we were in the same space, and I said, I need her to help me with this part. And I was a little bit scared. And then she was coming out the bathroom, and I just asked her to be my mentor. I just bombarded her coming out the bathroom, and she's been my mentor ever since. So when you find someone who is somebody that you think you'd like to talk to or can help you navigate some circumstances or situations, just ask that person. But you got to get out there so that you can, meet and think about the person that you would love to share your time with. And then be clear on what you want too. Be clear on what you want from the mentor, because then that person can say, yes, I can do those things, or no, they cannot, because I think that's important too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, we really, really appreciate your time. I mean, based on everything that you can also see coming in through the chat box, this has been so, so helpful for the people who are on right now and for those who are going to be able to join. I'm just going to share a couple additional resources with folks that, that hopefully they'll find helpful. Let's see if I can do this correctly. Yes. First and foremost, I want to say a huge thank you again, of course, to Dr. Bruce Poyner. We really appreciate you being here. And again, to Ohio AEYC and Southwest Ohio AEYC